A woman named Mary was going to visit her mother, and she took along with her her teenage daughter. And just before they got into the car, Mary said to her teenage daughter, "Honey, don't you think your skirt is a little short?" And her daughter rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, Mom," like they do. Mary got to her mother's house. As she opened the door and was greeted by her mother, the first thing her mom said to her was, "Dear, don't you think your neckline is a little too low?" Once a mother, always a mother, right? There was a mother who was attending a business meeting, and she didn't have her cell phone handy, so she made a collect call home. And her little boy answered the phone, and the boy heard these words, "We have a Betty Smith on the phone. Do you accept charges?" The little boy dropped the phone, ran screaming to his dad, and said, Dad, they've got Mom and they want money." Well, who could ever put a dollar value to the gift of mothers? And on this Mother's Day, we recognize our mothers and our grandmothers and our godmothers, all of the women who have had and continue to have a powerful motherly influence upon us. This is a weekend that we celebrate relationships, and they are so important. We look in the scriptures today, and they're all about relationships. In the gospel from John, Jesus says to us, "If you love me and you keep my word, my Father and I will dwell with you. And my Father will send the Holy Spirit in my name upon you, and our Holy Spirit will teach you everything and remind you of all that I have told you." That reading reminds us that at God's initiative, we are in relationship with God. God has come to dwell with us, and we are in relationship with God. We look at the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, and we see that we are also in relationship with each other. The word of Jesus is going out to the world through the missionary work of the church. And there's a question. Do Gentile people need to become Jewish first in order to become Christian? And so a council is held in Jerusalem under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And it is resolved that the Gentiles do not need to become Jewish first in their practices before they become Christian. Rather, the family of the Lord is wide open to those of Jewish background, to those of Gentile background. God is in relationship with us and enables us to be in relationship with Him and with each other here in our family, the church. And the middle reading from the book of Revelation tells us where all of this is going. John is given a vision of the heavenly Jerusalem, a vision of heaven, where in heaven we are in perfect relationship with God and in perfect relationship with each other, in harmony and in happiness forever. Our mothers and those with a motherly influence help us to appreciate the value of our relationships with God, with each other. I'm the oldest of 6 children. My youngest brother, Christopher, is 17 years younger than I. He's the youngest in the family. I'm the oldest. When Christopher was in kindergarten, our father died. When Christopher was a sophomore in high school, our mother died. And so my brother Kevin and his wife Debbie took Christopher into their home during his high school years. And then when Christopher was in college, he moved from Kevin and Debbie's house in Kokomo, Indiana, to my brother Terry and his wife Mandy's home in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and was there throughout his 4 years of college. One day, my brother Terry and my brother Christopher were shopping in an early May day, and Terry noticed that Christopher was over looking at Mother's Day cards. Terry didn't know what that was all about, so he went over and he said, "Chris, what are you doing?" Chris said, "Well, I'm looking at Mother's Day cards." And Terry said, "Chris, Mom has been dead for quite a few years now." And Chris says, "Well, Terry, I know that. But I'm looking for a Mother's Day card for Mandy because she's been kind of a mom to me these days." Sending a Mother's Day card to a sister-in-law. So many ways that motherly love and motherly influence is extended. As we go on in our years and we think back to our mothers or situations, how our eyes get even sharper and our minds come to realizations that perhaps we never had before. An adult woman was describing an experience with her own elderly mother that opened her eyes to something. And this is what she wrote. "A few years ago, when my mother was visiting, she asked me to go shopping with her because she needed a new dress. We visited nearly every store that carried ladies' dresses, and my mother tried dress after dress, rejecting them all. As the day wore on, I grew weary, and my mother grew frustrated. Finally, at our last stop, my mother tried on a lovely blue 3-piece dress. The blouse had a bow at the neckline, and as I stood in the dressing room with her, I watched as she tried with much difficulty to tie the bow. Her hands were so badly crippled from arthritis that she couldn't do it. Suddenly, as I watched her fumbling with her arthritic hands, it hit me. Suddenly, my impatience gave way to an overwhelming wave of compassion for this woman, my mother. I went over to tie the bow for her. The dress was beautiful, and she bought it. Our shopping trip was over, but the event was etched indelibly in my memory. For the rest of the day, I couldn't get it out of my mind that these were the loving hands that had fed me, bathed me, dressed me, tied my shoelaces and my bows, caressed and comforted me, and most of all, prayed for me. Later in the evening, I took her hands in mine, kissed them, and much to her surprise, told her that to me they were the most beautiful hands in the world. I'm so grateful that God let me see with new eyes what a precious, priceless gift a loving and self-sacrificing mother is.